I am Brother LD AZOBRA, formerly Lyman Dan White Jr. I'm here to share with you some things about what I've been learning. This is my first podcast episode, and I'd like to welcome you and thank you for listening in. I hope to do many more. What is the purpose of count time? Count time is to resurrect those who've been civilly dead, to awaken the mind of many of those who was lost in this system, in this world, by teaching you for so long, so long, you've been taught what to think. Here at Count Time, we want to teach you how to think, where you can be able to function self-sufficiently of your own. And we want to be able to take our time today and the days to come and talk to you about the things that what we're learning and what we've been exposed to at Count Time. Count Time is going to be about 30 minutes every time we come on. We're going to look to be being put on every Thursday at 4:00 p.m. because 4:00 p.m. is a special time for those who know what count time is. And that, as we go along, we're going to start giving you more information about who count time is. Now, I want you to realize it's my first episode. I'm going to be a little nervous, a little stage fright, a little jittery, but that's okay. Y'all just work with me. And once we get through the first one, hopefully the second, third one, and many more to come. And we just want to take our time today and start with some things that you might be concerned about, and even some things that I'm concerned about, some things that I really like to know about. So we're looking at getting started here. He said, now what is my purpose? What is LD AZOBRA purpose? Where I was listening to, how you pronounce his name, Brother Tanisha Coates, and he made a good point. He wrote this book that he wrote for his son, Between the World and Me. Very good book. I recommend everybody get that book. But he made a statement. They say, well, what you want people to know about you? What you like to do? You like to encourage people? Of course, Count Time want to encourage people. But our job, you got preachers, you got pastors, you got other ones, teachers who are here to give children hope, to encourage them. We want to do some of that, but our purpose is to bring clarity and illuminate the mind, so that you can better understand who you are, hopefully where you're going, and what your purposes are in life to come. And just to bring clarity about the system, what's going on in the system, particularly at a time like this when you got so much dissension, so much hatred, so much confusion. And we just hope to kind of bring everybody to a place where you're comfortable with yourself. And that's the first thing first way of getting yourself to the next level is by first being comfortable with you. Unlike our ancestors said, to know thyself. Because if you don't know thyself, you will never know the truth. And the truth is who you are and what's in you and what you're capable of doing. So we want to share with you some things about count time. I want to start my first podcast episode in sharing people about LD AZOBRA, because a lot of people want to know, well, brother, why did you change your name? What was the reason of changing your name? Why did you felt the need to change your name? I guess because I learned over the years, first of all, there's power in a name. And we all know that, particularly the Christian world. Or you can be a Buddhist, a Muslim. We all know there's power in names. And the name is that there's certain names that you hear. He said the name of Jesus. There's power in that name. There's life. There's peace. There's joy. And we want to be able to bring the same thing. That's why when my name came about, LD AZOBRA, that was interesting for me too. And I'm going to give you a little history of how this come about. Because I want to be able to take you for the little journey that I was on that brought me to where I am. But even though there's those who've been knowing me all of my life, and I'm 60-something years old now, and then the ones who truly know me probably would say, well, Brother LD, I knew it was only going to be a matter of time. Because I've been knowing you, knowing how you think, I've been around you, I've been hearing you speak and share for many, many years, and I know your heart, I know what you've been dealing with, and as anybody else, ups and downs of life, the happiness, the joyness of life, the peace, tranquility of life, you're going to get it all. Just continue living, but also you're going to have the confusion, the down days, the days that you just don't even want to get out of bed, figuring how you're going to make it, how you're going to survive. All this is part of this thing we call life. So none of us are immune to it. None of us are going to get out of here alive, like they say. So we want to enjoy these days. But like I said earlier, I want to be able to bring some clarity and illumination to you, where the mind gonna begin to open, to receive, and to begin to start, thinking for yourself. And it's get to the point now, if you don't start thinking for yourself, you're gonna be in trouble. Because what's going on in this world today, it ain't gonna be nothing nice for those who are faint at heart and don't have a mind. We all know we have a mind, but not willing to use it, to think for yourself, to reason for yourself. So that's what we want to do. We want to be able to help you to get to that place in life where you can reason and think for yourself. Now, it don't happen overnight. And for many, we have not exercised that right, because we all know that in order to take someone else's power, you need to use your power. So we want to encourage you to use your power starting today. And you have it. Every last one of them on this earth has it. But we have to learn where it is. But you got to start somewhere. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm starting somewhere. I'm starting by sharing what's in my heart, what's on my heart, what's in my spirit, with those who might be interested, those who might want to know or learn. If I'm able to teach one or two, that'd be great. But really, I want to just share from my heart. Because I've been through a lot, just like anyone else. There's no such thing as a perfect world, perfect life. But I'm learning to make the best of it. And I have made the best of it. In the early 90s, I started traveling. And I started traveling to Africa. I guess it had to be right at 30 years or so ago. And in 1990 was my first trip to Africa. I went to Egypt. What an eye-waking experience that was. I got more than what I bargained for. Enough to where I could almost say, changed my way of thinking. Changed the way I saw things. Opened my mind, it expanded my mind to see things in a different way. But then that's when I realized also that everything that was taught to me, a lot of it was some truths, but from a different perspective. So somebody can tell you a truth. The truth can be, for example, what can I use? I know how to work on computers. I know how to do this on the computer. And you say, well, okay, if you can do that, take it from me and go take care of that for me. I'm going to pay you so much money. And so I give you the computer. You take the computer and you bring the computer to someone else. Let someone else repair or fix the computer. But guess what? When you bring it back to me, it's working. And I'm going to pay you because, no, you correct whatever issue or concern I had with my computer. But the truth is that you didn't know how to work on computers. You brought it to someone that you knew who can work on computers. Now, that's what you call a good businessman, and I respect that. But the truth be told, you knew nothing about computers, how to work on a computer. But you had access, or you knew someone who did, and you utilized that to your advantage, and that's okay. But the truth is, you did not know how to work on computers. And the truth is, when I traveled, is that a lot of information that I was taught, there was a lot of truths. But the perspective where it came from, or who was the original of that information, the creator of that information, was not the truth. I found out that the people that was giving information and taking credit for it was not those who did what they say they did, but there are those who did. So, but at count time, we want to be able to, I guess, bring clarity to that and also expose the truth about a lot of that information. And so we're going to get to now about what is in the name. Why did I change my name? But there's power in the name. And I want you to understand how much power you have in your name. You know, in this country, what we call the US of A, we've been given a lot of names. Some of them are Irish. A lot of us got Irish. Some got Italians, German, even got Russian. But most of us in this country got English names or Latin, Spanish names. But people of my descent, these are not your original names. But it's names that we become very comfortable with, and it doesn't bother most of us, and it didn't bother me. But the name was not the name that was of my heritage of ancestors. But why I was somewhere and I began to learn more about, my culture, my history, who I am, my purpose, and still searching. I want to open myself up to other opportunities, because in names too, in words, when you speak a word, words are powerful. Like the Bible said, it's sharper than any two-edged sword, cut to the soul. And a name or a word can awaken you, can bring life to you if it touches you the right way. And I'm hoping through count time, or I believe through count time, it will awaken many. When someone will be able to arise and arrive to a place where they've been seeking to be and open to be. But it ain't gonna just happen because you said it. It's gonna happen because you're gonna speak the word in yourself, whether it's your name or whatever word you want to speak to yourself to bring you to life. That's what we're gonna be doing here at Count Time. The name came about LD AZOBRA. It came about while I was on a way at a trip, I would guess. And I was in a place called Oakdale Federal Prison. So I went to prison right at about 15 years ago, 2005, for what they say was Medicaid fraud, what was Medicaid fraud. It was a time, it was a very, very down time. At that time I had young children and I had to leave them and be away from them. And that was very tough, to be away from your children, your family, your loved ones. When I got there, I literally cried like a baby. It was a tough time, it was a hard time. But it wasn't hard during the time, just being there in a place where you literally locked up. It's like a human zoo. That's the best way I can describe it. You're moving around, you're there, you're alive physically, but you are in a cage. You're literally caged up and watched 24/7. Never had that kind of experience before. Of course, I've never had served any time, been to jail, been to prison before. But that experience, it done a lot. It done a lot. There are times when you figured out, why am I here, Lord? What is my purpose? And then why am I here in the prison? How did I get here in the prison? My own doing. It took a while after I cried many nights. And the crying came about just because you're there. And you know you're going to be away from your, think when you have young children at the time. And knows that you care for and love very much. So it was a very trying time. So it must, when I got there, I guess, fortunately, unfortunately, some people in there knew me. So it was interesting. They came to me to see what they can do to assist me, because where I'm from, there are a lot of the people that was in the federal prison that was from the same area. So when I got on the compound, they already knew I was coming. They was anticipating me. They was already waiting on me. And with my history, being a former football player and an NFL player, it's kind of like, although you're in prison, you're supposed to be somebody big to them to be coming to the prison. But it wasn't big for me, I'll be honest with you. But anyway, being there, and when I got past the days of the irritation, frustration, crying, and feeling sorry for myself, that's when I started talking to a few young men, and they had a young man in there from, remember, federal prison, you got people from all over the world in. So that was an interesting experience all by itself. You got 2,000 people there, and I promise you, out of 2,000, maybe 1,000 are from different parts of the country, of the world. And so having that experience, it kind of encouraged me a lot, because I got a chance to meet people from all over the world, and many other countries, from France, Germany, many from Africa, Mexico, Jamaica, just everywhere you can imagine. Just from all over the places. As a matter of fact, one of the guys I became very good friends with, he was from Holland, the country Holland. And that was interesting, because his name was Franklin, and I'm from a town called that. So we got a chance to know one another. We grew to be very close friends while in prison. But through this process, after about the first 30 days or so, moaning and feeling sorry, figuring out, Lord, what I'm gonna do, in here for the next 2-3 years. After I started talking with a lot of young men, they had a lot of interesting conversation. A lot of young guys was in there that was, low-level drug dealers. You figured out, really most of them, a lot of drug addicts. Figure out what they do in the federal prison. I thought it was supposed to be for what they call big-time criminals, committed big-time crimes. But it was a rude awakening. A lot of guys in there for crack cocaine dealing, using, gun charge. And that's when I learned about what they call ghost dope. They said they found some drugs on somebody. They didn't have it, but they said they found it, and gave these guys these trumped up charges and locked them down 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. It was amazing to see how much time the guys had in there. But also you realize that, this guy got 10 years, 15, 20 years, 30 years. So I really couldn't complain, right? That was another way to look at it, but it still hurts for you to see that these young guys gonna be here for a long time, doing all this time. But here nor there, you're there, you're on lockdown, and you're inside this human zoo, walking around all day. So I was speaking to a young man. He was from Jamaica. He had his long dreads, and handsome young man. And he started talking to him about some people some books that he was reading, and about he gave me some information on some different people. He was giving me some information on different people that he learned from. And it just so happened, my first trip I took out of the country was with one of the guys that he read his book. So when I told him I went to Egypt, that done something. That done something to him. He thought I was, no way I've been to Egypt. Particularly been to Egypt with his mentor. Through that process, we got to know each other. He started bringing me to the library. So not bringing me, actually meet him at the library. So we got to the library, we go to the library, we watch video. They had the video on the guy, on the author, and who I went to Egypt with. And they would let us watch the videos. And of course, my trip to Egypt was being replayed back in my mind. Like, oh, okay, I was there, I was here, I was over there. So it was like, man, that information, at the time, I had stopped talking about it because I thought people didn't want to hear about it. Every time I would talk about Egypt, talk about my experience, I don't know, maybe because of the way I was delivering the message is, so it's how you deliver the message and determine how people receive the message. And so a lot of people was not as receptive. Some were, a lot were not. So I stopped talking about it. And lo and behold, I go to prison, and guess what happened? The information that I was running away from or was staying away from, I would have to say the Lord put it right back in the front of me, in my midst. I said, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Lord, what this all about? What are you telling me? What are you saying to me? Or is this, are you talking to me, Lord? What's going on? Is another enemy talking to me? I was in a state of confusion myself. Now I figured out, okay, how I come to prison and the same information I left behind years ago is right here before me again. It was interesting. So I went with him, watched the videos several weeks in a row. We went and watched videos, plenty of videos on the subject matters of Egypt and the greatness of Egypt, the pharaohs and the queen and who done what. So as I sit there and watch the videos, my mind started, opening up again. The feeling of empathy, sorrow for myself started leaving, and I began to, feel alive again. So I started spending more time at the library, and then I started doing a lot of reading. And I had friends send me some books. So that's kind of how my journey started when I got to prison. So the more I read, the more I began to learn, the more my mind began to expand and a lot of the truth. So I guess I can say I'm the seeker of truth. Like the word AZOBRA, A-Z-O-B-R-A, AZOBRA means teacher of light, the light teacher. So, I started learning these different things, and it became interesting to me that, man, how in the world I'm in prison and now my mind is opening up to these things here. So I guess my prison experience, could I say that I went to prison, but I was working on my PhD. Prisonology degree. So it was interesting, and I learned a lot from it. But through that experience, going to the library on a regular basis, it gave me a purpose, gave me something to do, something to look forward to. And the more I started going, the more I started getting into it, and I started doing some writing. So I ended up writing me about a 180-page memoir about my journey, my story. And that was really brought me to life, because now, man, I sit here and wrote something. I've never been known as no writer, but I did have a magazine at one time, right before I went to prison, a magazine called Refreshing Louisiana. And it was a very nice magazine that I was working with a young man that, Willis Reed, Mr. Reed had a newspaper called the Baton Rouge Post, and I enjoyed working with him, and from there is when I decided to start my little magazine. So that was another little tidbit there. But through the library, going on a regular basis, all of a sudden one day, I would go to the library first thing in the morning, leave there, and you had to come back and they assign you jobs. So I was working in the cafeteria. So when I was working in the cafeteria, when I got through the cafeteria, I would go out to the rec yard. They had a little rec yard where you can walk around. A lot of guys did a lot of exercising out there. and I would do some exercising. But one day I was walking through there. Now I must have got there in November of the year before, but now it had to be the summertime because it was hot. So the next year, the summertime, and I'm working. I'm moving around now, meeting people. But just so happened one day, I walked by as you went out to the rec yard. There was a garden. A lot of guys was in. Some guy had to work the garden. So one day I passed by the garden, and before I left to go to prison, I was doing a lot of gardening myself. So I did some gardening for several years, growing tomatoes, peppers, okra, those good things. And we're going to have to get back at that, into that, because we all have a tough time coming ahead of us. So we need to learn how to farm, how to garden ourselves. But as I passed by the garden, I'm watching these guys, rolling the rows and planting the seeds. And I didn't pay no attention after that. That day I saw these guys out there working in the garden, putting the rows up where they can, lay the seeds and not everything in the garden. So I guess a few weeks later, I was passing the same area, didn't give it any thought, but when I passed the same area, all of a sudden I see these plants coming out of the ground. Oh, that was interesting. It seemed like it was a couple of days, really. That's what it seemed like, it was a couple of days. I just saw these guys, hoeing these rows and getting it ready to plant. And a few days later, I'm seeing things pop out of the ground. And that was a powerful experience for me. It was not just seeing things pop out of the ground. That became real to me because I began to see something. I said, man, this is a powerful experience. What I learned was that a human being is just the same. In us is a seed that lies in our mind, and that seed lies dormant. But proper water, proper tickling, proper cultivation, proper teaching, proper exposure, the seed's going to begin to come to life. And it's going to bear fruit of its kind. So I'm thinking that, man, if these seeds can bring forward life that feeds us, that nurtures us, can produce the food that feeds us and nurtures us, how much more would it do? How much more of the... But I realized that this what caused the regermination in the life of the seed was, yes, they planted, they put it in the dirt, they had to water it, tittle it, but the sun that was shining every day is what brought forth the fruit, brought forth the life. And I said, man, this is pretty interesting. So I decided that day, I wonder what happened if I go out every day and meditate. What would happen with the mind if that sun does that to the seeds in the ground and everything else? Because the sun is what gives life to everything. We all know what happened if we wake up one day and the sun don't shine anymore. We're all in trouble because the earth would freeze over. So I decided that day I was going to start going out and meditate. So I started meditating from that day. And every day I could get out to the rec yard, I went to meditate. I would go, first thing, as soon as they opened the doors and let the inmates out, I would go out to the rec yard. Because I wanted to meditate. I wanted to watch the sunrise. And as I've done this on a regular basis, I would go out in the morning and meditate just to watch the sunrise. It's the first time I learned that the sun is in a different place every day. I had no clue. I thought the sun would rise in the exact same place every day. The sun is in a different place every day, or is it the earth moving every day that caused the sun to shine in a different place? Whichever one you think it is, I can't help you with that. But I noticed every day the sun was in a different place. Even now it's fall, going into winter, and the sun is heading into the southern hemisphere. And what do that mean to most people? Most people don't think nothing of it. That means that the sun is moving downwards, so everything from the north, as you come down, it's going to be colder and colder and colder because the sun is getting further and further away from the southern hemisphere, from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. And that's what caused it to start getting, you open up the opportunity for the coldness to come in. So I start meditating, and I see that the sun is in a different place, but also the energy of the sun. So at first when I started meditating, I couldn't look into the sun because it was just too powerful. It burned my eyes, it irritated my eyes. But after a few days, I began to look directly at the sun and look at it for sometime an hour, just directly, at least 30 minutes to an hour, almost on a regular basis. But I began to realize that it began to illuminate the mind, my thoughts. Because the sun, as you begin to just to analyze it and look at it and figuring out how the sun sits there, what's holding it up, what all them lights, red, green, orange, yellow, white, all colors coming from the sun. And it's always, everything is moving, everything is in motion. So I began to really think about what that was all about. What was that experience about? What was the purpose of the sun? And why don't we spend more time studying the sun, which they do, but we don't. Most people do not. Or do we watch it we look at it almost every day of our life, but never think much of it. But it's the most powerful thing in the universe. So I'm watching the sun. I'm studying myself because I'm reflecting back to what happened when I went to Egypt. On the temples of all the temples of Egypt, there was a writing. Say, man, know thyself. And I never understood what that meant. But now I'm beginning to kind of come to myself to understand what that means. What it means to know thyself. And what I began to learn was that this here. That if you never know yourself, you will never know the truth. Because the only truth there is the truth that's in you. So if you never find that truth or seek that truth, you would never know. And the truth is the life that's in you, the God that's in you, the power that's in you. So I began to do a lot of searching. A lot of guys begin to pay attention to me. A lot of guys begin to see me out there meditating on a regular basis, walking, exercising. So one day, I was talking to a young brother who was out from Uganda. He was from Africa. Uganda is one of the countries in Africa. Uganda probably is the country that they believe man began at. It's got a place called the Mountain of the Moon, where God heavily dwells. And they got a lake up there that they named it Lake Victoria after the Queen of England, Victoria. But the original name before this was Lake Ukuri. I can't pronounce it that well, but something like Lake Ukuri, which in Uganda they speak Swahili. So in the days you used to hear a lot about Swahili, you don't hear as much about Swahili anymore because the Uganda people spoke Swahili, which is a language of the people. But around 1862, I believe, Uganda was taken over by United Kingdom, Great Britain. And the Queen Victoria was the queen at that time, so they named the lake after her. And the Lake Victoria is really, is where the Nile River begins. It's the start of the Nile River in Uganda. It moves up to Ethiopia, Sudan, up to Egypt. No, in 1858 is when John Speke, who was allegedly an explorer from Europe, went to Uganda, and they changed the name of Lake Ukuri to Lake Victoria. But in 1962, in 1858 is when the Europeans went there. But in 1962 is when Uganda got its independence back. But we know what they mean by got your independence back. You get your independence as long as you go by the rules that are set for you to follow, that are going to govern you now. So one day sitting outside with the brother from Uganda, he and I we talk on a regular basis. He was very, very intellectual. He was just a smart man. He was a very intelligent man. So I was talking with him one day. He said, you know, brother, he said, your name should be AZOBRA. I said, AZOBRA? I said, what do that mean? He said, well, it means light, like the sun. I said, AZOBRA? Yeah, it's Swahili. It means the light. It also means like the teacher of light. I said, how you come up with that name? He said, man, just watching you, when I'm here and I pass by and watch you, when I walk in the track, I'm watching you watch the sun. He said, it's just amazing. It amazed me, but also when I speak to you, I'm enlightened. He said, because I learned a lot from you. He said, so I want to give you that name. I want to bestow that name upon you because I'm from Uganda and I speak Swahili and that name fits you. And I accepted that name that day. That must have been in 2006. But I didn't do anything with the name, but I've been having a name that he spoke to me. He spoke to me back then. And he said, well, AZOBRA, A-Z-O-B-R-A. I'm going to give you an example of B-R-A or R-A in that. R-A stands for Ra. R-A or R-A-H. Ra. Ra was the sun god of Egypt. It's the god that all people worship and paid homage to. And today, we still use Ra. We just don't realize it. But even in the name Abraham, how you spell Abraham? A-B-R-A-H-A-M. Or his wife, Sarah. S-A-H-A, no, S-A-H, let me make sure. S-A-R-A-H, I'm sorry. Sarah. That was her name, Sarah. S-A-R-A-H. Is it interesting that two of the people that we say are the beginning of the generation of the great people had names with Ra in it, Abraham and Sarah. And also the letters R-A, we use on a regular basis too now. We're going to get it wrong. We use it on a regular basis. But also in a periodic table, most people know what the periodic tables are, right? It's where that talks about all the chemical elements that we use. The periodic table, Ra, is used for radium or radiation or what we call light. And it has the atomic. So we use Ra in the periodic table for light, radiation, or atomic. We know what atomic bomb does. It explodes, it creates a light beyond what anyone can look at. So Ra is the code, in the periodic table or for elements that we use to this day for light. So when I say AZOBRA, it's the teacher of light. So it's not something just made up or something that don't have any significance to it. It's power in that name. And I enjoy the name. I'm thankful for that name. I thank you, brother, I can't remember the brother's name, but I thank him that he gave that name or spoke that name upon me. And I received that name. And ever since then, the name have been a part of me, but I have not came out and claim or taken the name or moved forward with it. But this day and several days, months before, I did. So that's why when you speak to me now, and I understand some people gonna have a hard time even remembering, but you know, I just out of respect, I prefer LD AZOBRA. And there's other reasons behind that too. And I'm gonna share this here with you. The name became even more powerful to me to bestow up on myself. One day last year, must have been September of last year, I went to the bank to open up an account. A friend of mine was putting together a business plan, a business. So we wanted to get an account open where we can start our business. When I tell you, I was just riding around, didn't know which bank I was going to use, which bank I preferred, just kind of going back and forth, didn't know. So I rode around, and I had a call. The guy said, man, I need to meet you, I need to drop something off to you. So I just happened to pull up in his parking lot where I met the guy at. And when I pulled up, he brought me a package that he wanted to deliver to me. And when he did, I looked behind me, there was a bank. I said, well, nah, that's a small bank. I don't want to go in that bank. So I got in my vehicle to drive away. And I looked back, I said, a bank right there. I said, no, there's another bank across the street. So, you know, in your own mind, you're working out things. So I got ready to drive across the street. I said, nah, I'm right here now. I might as well at least go see what they have to offer. So I got out, went into the bank, spoke to a young man first. After that, the young lady was very attentive, who was really, she's good. If I have a business and had need for her service, I would hire her today. She was really, really good. So she called me to come sit by her. Next thing I know, she asked what I was doing, want to open an account. Right. What name is going to be in. I had all my paperwork already for the business. And she looked at it, started. Then as I'm sitting there, she and I going back and forth, talking, getting to know her. She was much, much younger than me. But she was a very, very intelligent young lady and sweet and kind. So as she's talking, I'm looking. So finally, I'm looking at the lady who's sitting in the office. So she, as the young lady behind the desk typing up my information, she asked where I was from. So I told her where I was from. It just so happened the lady in the other room hollered, "Where you from?" So I said where I was from again. She said, "No, you're not. I'm from there." I said, "Who are you?" I said, "Well, who are you?" She came out. I didn't know who she was. She didn't know who I was. Then as we started talking, she asked me, "What's your name?" I told her my name. She said, no. She told me her name. When she told me her name, of course, we knew who each other was. It was a very interesting experience. Like, oh, okay, I come to this bank. I had no clue you was running this bank. Oh, yeah, I've been managing this bank for many, many years. So she said and started talking to me. We go back and forth. The young lady still is working on opening the account up. She was good. She steady moving forward. Nothing stopping her. So as we were moving forward, getting ready to open the account, as she opened the account up, and as the young lady came sit down right next to me to conversate with me, when she found out I was from Franklin, we had a lot in common. Went to the same high school, or did we? No, we didn't go to the same high school. We was talking about a lot of our different experience in Franklin and who her husband was, all this stuff. So as she's talking to me and I'm looking at her, I see her looking over my head. And she's done it about 3 or 4 times. About the 4th or 5th time, I can tell her, well, no. So she said, can you hold on a minute? I said, okay. So she came back. She said, she didn't know how to ask me some information. So she was just puzzled about whatever she just saw and what was going on. She was puzzled. I could see it in her eye. I could see her mind racing. And she didn't know how to ask something to me. She said, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to open this account for you at this time. I said, maybe you just go somewhere else. So that was interesting. And I'm figuring out what then happened. She said, well, So finally, she didn't want to hurt my feelings, didn't want to embarrass me in front of the people that was there, and the young lady that was helping me. So she gave me a paper to read. She said, well, you know anything about this? I said, about what? She said, read this. So I began to read the information. And the information, I got a copy of the paperwork right here. They said fraud type, healthcare fraud, money laundering, sanctioning body, FBI, Louisiana Attorney General, Medicaid fraud unit, mark remarks, got my name, was indicted for defrauding Medicaid program of over $1.6 million by billing for drugs and alcohol counseling service, which were never performed. Went on some other stuff. I said, well, what? I said, well, what is that? I said, yeah, I went to prison. She said, well, I know you did, but I don't understand what this is about. I said, well, you don't understand, I don't understand either. I said, what is it? She said, I don't know, I've never seen nothing like this. I said, hold on, you work at the bank and you've been here for over 30-some years, you never saw nothing like this? No. And it was puzzling to me, like, how you never saw nothing like, well, what is it? She couldn't explain what it was. I didn't know what it was. And now she want to ask me to leave the bank, but she's being really cordial and nice about it because she don't want to hurt my feeling because I'm a homeboy. So, but the young lady behind the desk, she just typing away. She going forward. She ain't stopping for nothing. I mean, she just, we're going to get this account open. And she said, well, maybe we can look back at it some other time, but I'm not sure about this. I don't know what this is. And I don't know. I just don't know. So she let me read it and I look at it. I said, well, look, I mean, I told you, I went to prison. I served some time. But I don't know what this is about. I said, well, where it came from? She said, where it comes from, when anyone open up an account with a bank, we got to go through what we call OFAC. O-F-A-C. I said, what's OFAC? She said, well, I don't know. I said, how long you been doing this? Since I've been working at the bank. And you don't know what OFAC is? No. I say, so I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. I said, what's the purpose of it? I said, I don't know. It's just something they train us to do, to use when we here at the bank. When anybody opens an account, we have to send this through OFAC. I said, well, I opened up an account at a bank about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. I didn't have this problem. She said, well, I don't know. I don't understand myself. But the young lady behind the desk was steady typing. She wouldn't let her not open the account up. She would not let her release me and go somewhere else. And she really was good, I'm gonna tell you that. And she said, well, I don't know if I can open the account up. So the young lady said, well, can we call the home office and talk to the people at the home office? She said, well, I don't know. She said, well, I can call. So before she knew it, the young lady had called the home office and was talking to the boss lady, I guess. And a question was asked, do you know him? And I guess she said, yes, I do. Do you trust him? Yes, I do. Talking to the lady, the manager of the bank, the supervisor, the manager of the branch. And she said, well, go to open the account up. So she ended up opening an account. Very, what that word is again? Reluctant, but she opened the account up. If the lady would not have known me, knew my history, knew where I was from, she would never open that account up. So that situation put me in a very awkward position. And the lady still, although she knew me, she had reservations because now she don't know if she can trust me. She don't know what's going on. She don't understand what's going on. And of course, I don't know. I went to prison. I served the time. I thought you said when you go to prison, you go pay your debt to society, right? But no, now when you're dealing with this government, that debt is never paid. So about a few minutes later, she decided to go look and find out what OFAC was. So I'm going to read to you what OFAC is. And it was interesting when I found this out. OFAC, O-F-A-C, that's the code, that's the acronym, stands for Office of Foreign Assets Control. Office of Foreign Assets Control. Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. Did you get all that? OFAC stands for Office of Foreign Assets Control. Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. Set up in 1950. Operates under the U.S. Department of the Treasury. So the Department of the Treasury is in control of the Office of Foreign Assets Control, Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. So they got me, everyone, as a terrorist. It's confusing to me. Still don't understand how did I end up in the terrorism category when I never done harm to anyone. But they let you know in this country, you don't know where they might have you at. And that's why it's important for me to share with you what's going on in my life, because a lot more of you are going to be in that same predicament. But I'm going to tell you what I did. The next week is under the federal government. So the next week I went to the federal government office, to the courthouse, to look through the records to find out where this information is. How this got up in here. Couldn't find it nowhere. Spent a lot of time that day. Went and talked to some people. And I wanted to talk to the two prosecutors that was there when I was going through my legal stuff 10 years before. Granted, they probably was mad at me because while they was there, I put a lien on two of the prosecutors. For real, y'all, I put a lien on them. And there's a reason why I done that, because they had put a lien on me. Do you know when you go to prison, the federal government put a lien on you and your assets? So it's what they call a mortgage. They mortgage you. I didn't know nothing about that, of course. That was something new to me. So when I learned what they done, I took the same information, retyped it, and put a lien on them. I think it was $7 million a piece. So it might have been $70 million. Either $7 million or $70 million a piece. And when I put the lien, must have been like 2010, I would guess, 2010, 2011. One day I'm at the house, the federal government comes serve me papers. I've been out of prison since 2008, I guess. And the papers they was charging me with fraud again. Charging me with fraud again? For what this time? And I had a court date. So I, went to court. I was doing a lot of my own paperwork at the time, but I think I might have had an attorney. Can't remember. Did I have an attorney? I can't remember if I had an attorney or not. I think I did. But I was doing a lot of my own paperwork at the time. I filed my own paperwork into the federal courts. So I went to court this day, and as the judge was talking to me about what happened and why, asked me why did I commit this fraud. I'm confused. What fraud did I commit this time? What are you talking about? And they couldn't really explain it, so they went on and on. But I found something that happened. The judge at the time was Judge James Brady, who really was a good guy. I got to give it to him. He's deceased. He died a few years ago, I believe. But he's the one who sent me to prison the first time. Reluctantly, but he sent me. So now we're in the court again for fraud. He threatened to send me to prison, back to prison, to serve the rest of my time and all this stuff. Because then he said, why do you go around putting liens on federal prosecutors? They're putting liens on federal prosecutors. I had done that a year or two before. said, yeah. He said, I can't remember his prosecutor name. He said he went to sell his house, and he can't sell his house because he got a lien on his house. So you know what I said to myself? Man, this really worked. I had no clue. I put a lien on them just like they put a lien on me, right? They say lien on me if you're not strong, not knowing that the lien stuck. So the judge gave me 24 hours to go to the courts. I filed in another court. So they didn't have jurisdiction to go remove it. And gave me 24 hours to go remove those liens. If not, they was going to put me back in prison for fraud. Now, I don't know what fraud I committed. If the lien was a fraud, it shouldn't have no value. It should be able to remove it. It should be able to remove it with no problem if it's fraud. But that lien was real. So that is a reason why I can see why they was mad at me. But for them to call me a terrorist and put me in a position of a terrorist, you can't justify that. That is not right. Now these guys, when I went to look for them, to talk to them, they told me they had retired. So right as they were walking out the door to retire, they filed this paperwork and put me in that category. So they can do these things. They've done it to me, done it to others, they do it to many more. So why am I a terrorist? How can I become a terrorist? Who I hurt, who did I harm? If anything, more harm been done to me than I've done to any of them. But it's a story that I just want to share. Truly one I'm not proud of. But I never would thought they would put me as a terrorist. A terrorist. That's pretty interesting. It's still hard for me to swallow this. But in spite of all this, you realize life goes on. And no matter what, I played football. With football, in football, you practice, make preparation, you get ready for the game, and then you get ready for the game, you study what you have to study, you practice hard, you learn what your opponents are doing. And when the game gets started, it's one or two things happen. Either you did or you did not do what you're supposed to do. That's all going to happen when you line up. Either you made the play or you got blocked, got knocked down, got whatever, but you didn't do what you're supposed to do. Remember, when you line up on that field, whether it's soccer, basketball, football, when you line up, either you did or you didn't do what you're supposed to do. So that when that ball is snapped, the collision starts. Either one or two things happen, y'all. Either you did or you didn't do what you're supposed to do. If you did do what you're supposed to do, everybody happy, everybody rejoicing. But if you didn't do, you drop your head, you're mad, you're fussing, cussing at yourself. But you know the only thing about it, you only got 25 seconds to think about it. And you know why? Because another play is getting ready to come right behind that one. And then another play, then another play. And that's the way life is. Every day you get up, either one or two things going to happen. Either you're going to do or you're not going to do, or you're going to make something, you're going to do, you did or you didn't do what you're supposed to do to make things happen for yourself and your family. But no matter which one happens, you only have that one day to deal with it, because why? The next day is coming. Then the next day. Then the next day. And every day brings its own issues, own concerns, own what we call problems, its own issues. So you have to deal with life every day, resolve it the best you can and move on. That's what I had to do. When I found out they had me as a terrorist, that was a tough pill to swallow. I was ready to work. I was working on doing a big deal with an organization that asked me to put some things together, build houses, some properties. And now these people had me in this category. I couldn't go back and talk to the people because they was gonna find this out. So I wanted to go and see, can I resolve it on my own? But guess what? I could not resolve it. So it's over a year later, and I'm still considered a terrorist. The United States of this great America. But remember, this is count time. We want every man and woman to stand up and be counted. I want you to remember this too. Man can shackle the hands. Man can shackle the feet. But only you can shackle the mind. The mind is always free to travel and to go wherever you dare to take it. So challenge yourself. Challenge the mind. Come out your comfort zone and make a better place, a better world for yourself and others. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in on our first episode of Count Time, AZOBRA Network Production. Thank you for tuning in today, and welcome again to Count Time. Thank you.